Use this daily focus prioritizer. In this episode, we are going to address the question, how can I get better organized on a daily basis to accomplish much more? So my name's Doug Andrew, and I've enjoyed educating people, especially business owners or parents, grandparents, professional entrepreneurs, whether they're doctors, dentists, real estate professionals, chiropractors, on how to be able to be better focused and more productive in whatever they do. Now, if you're like me and you can relate, I used to be a perfectionist, but I got liberated from perfectionism. And I realized that I was setting myself up almost every day to feel like I was losing the game of life. And it was because I learned about the $25,000 idea, and this was, probably about 100 years ago, where a gentleman came in to a multi-millionaire and said, I've got an idea. You pay me whatever you think it's worth. And he said, well, share the idea. And he just said, things to do. And he had a pad of paper with lines that says, things to do today, okay? And they distributed those lists out to all their employees, and he wrote him out a check for $25,000, which would be, over $250,000 in today's dollars, maybe much more than that. And so I've always thought, okay, I'm going to write down my list of things to do. I mean, how many of you watching this do the same thing? But I would write down a list, and pretty soon it would be 15, 20, 25 things on the list, and I would feel overwhelmed right off the bat. Well, these are all the things that I would like to or need to do, but I felt almost defeated because there's no way I could get all those things done on the list. And so at the end of the day, when I only crossed off 7 or 8 of the 25, I felt like I was losing the game of life. I felt like a failure. Well, I flipped that around by using this daily focus. And this made all the difference in the world, and I got on a win streak in my life because I began to focus on what was the most important things that I needed to accomplish. So I'm going to walk through this form with you and show you how you can set yourself up to feel like you're winning the game of life every day instead of losing the game of life. So every day, what I do is I take a few minutes, and a lot of times I'll do this the night before. I'll take this sheet of paper, and it's titled My Daily Focus, and I'll put my name and the date on it. And I will first start right here, to-do list. So I'll start the list of things that I would like to do the next day, only the next day. I don't want to get ahead of myself because I have another sheet of paper which are projects and things that I'd like to do, in the next few days or the next week or two. But I write down the list of things to do. And then the first thing I do is I categorize them A, B, or C over here on the left. I check off which ones are A, number one priorities, okay? And then the B, and then the C's. So I'm dividing this list into one of 3 categories, A, B, or C. Then I take a look at the A, and there might be 4 or 5 or 6. Those seem to be like the absolute must-do things in my mind. But I circle the top 3. When I go to bed that night, that's what I want to make sure I accomplished. And then I rewrite those up here at the top, and I get very, very specific. And so, and this is in priority. This is number 1, A number 1. This is A number 2. This is A number 3. And I've described it in greater detail from the list down here. And then I focus on those top 3. In other words, I set myself up that if I only accomplished those 3, I would feel like the day was well spent and I was winning the game of life. So I focus on the things that matter most instead of trying to get rid of all the other little things so that I can finally have those off the table and start on the really important things. No, let's start on the most important things. And as I focus on 1, 2, and 3, if I then get 4, 5, and 6 done on this list, what happens? I said I would feel like I was winning if I only got 3, but I got 7. Before, if I only got 7 out of 25, I felt like I was losing. If I get 7 and I said I would feel like a winner if I got 3, it's all a setup. This releases endorphins right here in the pituitary gland of your brain that gets you feeling high on life naturally, like you're winning the game of life, and it's all a setup. Are you winning or losing? If I could just get these 3 done, I'm winning. If I get 7, I'm really winning. That's a bonus. But if I say I want to get 25 things done and I only get 7 done, I feel like I'm losing. Does that make sense? So this helps me prioritize. Now I'm going to share with you what I do over here, which is also a game changer. So over on the right-hand side of this form, these are for notes and follow-up actions. So for example, I'll read right from here. This would be to consider what calls do you need to make in order to accomplish these things? What emails or letters do you need to send? Do you have some errands that you need to run? What relationships do you need to cultivate, touch base? What projects do you need to focus on today that will have the greatest impact? In other words, what's the smallest changes or things that you can do that will have the greatest impact? And so I put those notes over here on the right that will help me prioritize these actions. And at the bottom, this is the positive accomplishment. So at the end of every day is usually when I write down 3 positive accomplishments. So what went right today? Now, I'll be the first to admit that sometimes I envision my day that this would happen, and this would happen. But have you ever had days that didn't go like you planned? And you had the unexpected, and there are moments that matter every day. But see, it's those things that you didn't see coming and how you were able to act and not react. And at the end of the day, you wouldn't believe how many times the 3 positive accomplishments, I didn't even envision them at the beginning of the day. Now, there's a lot of days that they are the 3 that I hoped to have accomplished, but I look at what went right during the day, not what went wrong. I don't beat myself up and say, oh, I wanted to get all those done. No, I celebrate, you know what? This happened. My son, he fell and had to have stitches, and my wife was tied up, and I had to cancel my appointment and run down, take him to the emergency room, but he was just a brick. The emergency room doc said, man, I've never seen a little boy so brave. How come you're so brave? Because my daddy is here. He's my hero. Wow. I mean, that was a huge win. That's a positive accomplishment. So no matter what goes awry or wrong, you don't focus on that. You focus at the end of the day on 3 things that went right, and you get on that win streak that I'm talking about. So consider using a form or a way to focus your days on what matters most, prioritize them, set yourself up so that you will feel like you're winning the game of life instead of losing the game of life, and watch the difference in your attitude. Your spouse, your children will notice that you are more in control, you're more happy, and you're great to be around. How would that be? Do you know that when I began to develop this habit of the daily focus and the wins, my life got simpler. I thought it was going to complicate things. My income doubled in 6 months. When I began to focus on what matters most, I began to prioritize. I did that by even color coding my time so I could balance my time with my wife. I mean, that was yellow because she's blonde. And so I would highlight in my calendar the time I would make sure I spent with her. with the family, that was orange. With personal time, maybe exercising, playing racquetball, or reading, that was blue time. If I was with clients and doing the things I needed to do to provide a living, that was green, the color of money. And the pink was the paperwork and the errands and the calls that are necessary. But I could tell how my week would be in full living color when I began to color code my to-do list and my calendar. And so if this is resonating with you and you would like to get additional ideas on how to focus and rethink your thinking, I wrote the book Entitlement Abolition, one of my favorite books. And the first 4 chapters talk about how sometimes we get into these traps, and even how our children and grandchildren begin to develop an entitlement mindset. But it's far deeper than that. The last 8 chapters talk about how we hold a grandpa's camp and family retreats, and we teach equal opportunities. But one of my favorite events that we do twice a year is a family vacation where we go through tools. I have 20 of them, like the daily focus, and I empower our children and grandchildren, our employees at business retreats, on how to think through how they're going to have a better life. You can get a free copy of this. I'll pay for the book. You just pay $5.95 shipping and handling, and I'll fire one out to you. Is that fair enough? How do you do that? You go to entitlementabolitionbook.com, entitlementabolitionbook.com, and I'll send you out a copy at no charge for the book. You just pay shipping and handling, and you'll have access to a lot of these ideas and worksheets in that book.